to in this section we are going to discuss the antiarrhythmic drugs. Now, before going to the actual drugs which are of antiarrhythmic nature, we should have a good knowledge about the types of action potentials in cardiac fibers and how these action potentials are generated. So the cardiac tissue, it can be divided into two types. So it consists of the cardiac myocytes, which are the actual cardiac muscle fibers present in atria and ventricles, and it also consists of the nodal tissue, which is a specialized cardiac tissue. Now this nodal tissue, it consists of SA node, AV node, bundle of His, as well as the Purkinje system. Cardiac myocytes, they can be atrial fibers or they can be ventricular fibers. Now, in heart or in cardiac muscle, there are two types of action potentials. One is the pacemaker potential and the other is the plateau potential, which is present in ventricular fibers, atrial fibers, etc. Now, pacemaker potential, it will only be present in the pacemaker of the heart, which is usually SA node, and at all other places we have the plateau potential. Now, this nodal tissue, SA node, AV node, bundle of His, Purkinje fibers, they are all capable of acting as pacemakers. So, they all have the property of autorhythmicity, so they can act as pacemaker. However, under normal conditions, only SA node acts as the pacemaker. So, SA node is the normal pacemaker because it has high autorhythmicity of almost 100 beats per minute. Its intrinsic rate is 100 beats per minute, but in a normal person, because of resting vagal tone, this heart rate is decreased to 72 beats per minute. So in the SA node, which is a normal pacemaker of heart, the type of action potential generated is the pacemaker potential, whereas in all other places such as AV node, bundle of His, and atrial and ventricular muscle fibers, the type of action potential generated is the plateau potential. Now in pacemaker potential, the rise of membrane potential from RMP to threshold, this process goes on automatically by certain mechanisms. However, in plateau potential, from resting membrane potential to threshold potential, the membrane potential can only rise when it receives a stimulus, usually from the pacemaker itself. Now we'll discuss these potentials and how they are generated. So if we talk about the pacemaker potential, this potential will be generated only in the pacemaker of heart, which under normal circumstances is the SA node. So if this line denotes the normal resting membrane potential, which is almost minus 60 millivolts for the SA node, the membrane potential rises from this RMP to threshold value. So this is the threshold value and it goes on automatically, and then there is rapid depolarization followed by repolarization, and the membrane potential is restored back, and then same cycle is repeated again and again. So this is known as phase 0, this is phase 1, and this is phase 4 of the pacemaker potential. Now, why does this phase 0 occur? There is no stimulus at all. So this is also called as pre-potential, and it goes on automatically without any external stimulus. So the main reason for this pre-potential is the entry of sodium ions through a special type of channel present in the membrane. They are called as Funny channels. Now these are called Funny channels because they also allow the entry of potassium through them. Now calcium channels, the entry of calcium through L type of calcium channels. Now note that these L type of calcium channels, they are slow type of calcium channels. They can be remembered from the letter L itself, so they also contribute to this pre-potential. So the main ions involved here are sodium ions and the calcium ions, and as a result membrane rises towards threshold potential, and this results in opening of voltage gated calcium channels. So calcium channels open here, and as a result there is rapid influx of calcium and the start of phase 1, that is the depolarization phase. So it will be because of entry of calcium. However, the calcium channels involved are the T type of calcium channels, which are fast type of calcium channels, and it results in depolarization. Now it's important to note that sodium channels are not involved here, but calcium channels are involved. Now this will be discussed in a few minutes why this happens. Now the potential can rise above the level 0, so that's known as overshoot, and eventually there will be opening of potassium channels and rapid potassium efflux, which results in repolarization and brings the membrane potential back to the resting membrane potential. And then again pre-potential, and same thing goes on, and this is repeated almost 72 times per minute, and which is the normal heart rate. This pre-potential is again important if you want to regulate the heart rate. So if under sympathetic innervation the rise of this pre-potential increases, And in parasympathetic innervation, the rate of rise of prepotential decreases, so the heart rate, it increases and decreases accordingly. Now let us take a look at plateau potential. So if this is the resting membrane potential, which is almost minus 90 millivolts in ventricular muscle fiber. So initially there will be depolarization of the muscle fiber, and so if this is the site of stimulus, then there will be depolarization followed by repolarization, but this will be early repolarization. It will be followed by a plateau phase and then rapid repolarization. So this is known as the phase 0 or depolarization, and the main ion involved in this is the sodium ion. Now why sodium ions are involved here is because sodium ions can enter through sodium channels, which can be stimulated only when action potential is almost minus 90 millivolts. That's when they are in resting state. So it results in entry of sodium ions in depolarization, and at this point the potassium channels open, so there will be efflux of potassium, but this cannot continue for long because very soon calcium channels also open, and so there's potassium efflux and entry of calcium. The charges are balanced on both the sides, and that results in no net change in the membrane potential, which results in formation of a plateau. So because of these two charges, there will be formation of plateau, and soon the calcium channels will close and potassium channels will keep going, potassium ions will keep going out through the potassium channels, and that will cause rapid repolarization. So phase 0 will be the depolarization phase, phase 1 will be early repolarization, phase 2 will be plateau phase, and phase 3 will be the phase of rapid repolarization. Now an important thing to note here is in plateau potential, in the depolarization sodium ions are involved, whereas in pacemaker potential calcium ions are involved in the phase of depolarization. Now we need to study another important topic that's called as refractory period. In order to understand refractory period, we should have some knowledge about the sodium channels. So a voltage gated sodium channel, it consists of two gates. These are the M gate and the H gate. So if this is a sodium channel, these are the two gates. One is called as the M gate, which is present on the outer side, and other is the H gate. Now these gates can open and close, which results in various states of this sodium channel. So if this is the sodium channel, this is M gate, which is closed, and the H gate, which is open. So this state of sodium channel is called as resting state. So whenever the sodium channels are in this state, they can respond as stimulus. So the sodium channels are ready only in resting state. They can respond to the stimulus, and this state is present when the membrane potential is almost minus 90 millivolts. Now when stimulated and when the membrane potential rises to threshold potential, say around minus 70 millivolts, this results in opening of this M gate of sodium channel. So this was the initial location, and now it started opening, and the H gate started closing. However, H gate is not completely closed in this state. So both the gates are open in this state, and this state is called as activated state of sodium channel, or it's also called as open state of sodium channel. Now in this state, sodium ions can move into the cell through this channel. Sodium influx occurs, and that can result in depolarization later on. Now after depolarization has taken place, the H gate, it will be completely closed, and M gate will be completely open. So this is M gate, which is open, and H gate, which is closed. So this state of sodium channel is called as inactivated state. Now in this state, again, sodium ions cannot enter into the cell. Now in order to become responsive to stimulus, these sodium channels have to again go back to resting state, which is only possible after repolarization. And for repolarization, potassium efflux is necessary. So after potassium efflux takes place, the repolarization will occur, and the sodium channels will again become responsive to stimulus. So sodium channels can respond to stimulus only in this state, that's when they are in resting state. And when sodium channels are in activated state, they cannot just go back to the previous state. That's not possible. This cycle goes on only in one direction. So they have to first go to inactivated state, and then again after repolarization go back to resting state, in which they can respond to the stimulus. So this makes sense why sodium channels are not involved in pacemaker potential, because the membrane RMP in that case is around minus 60 millivolts. So sodium channels remain in activated state. So in activated state, they cannot function, they cannot allow the entry of sodium ions. So that's why calcium channels come into picture. Now if we take a look at the resting membrane potential of a ventricular muscle fiber, so this is phase 0, this is phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3 of the plateau potential. So At resting membrane potential, sodium channels, they are in resting state, that is in ready state. If stimulated by a stimulus, these channels will go into active state and they will cause sodium influx, which will result in depolarization. So if this is a stimulus, now this causes influx of sodium ions and it results in depolarization. So if we can try it here as well. So if this is a sodium channel, if this is a sodium channel and initially it's in the resting state, now it can go to activated state once it receives stimulus. Now this will allow sodium influx and cause depolarization. After depolarization, potassium channels will open, so there will be potassium influx and soon there will be calcium influx as well, which will cause plateau phase, and then calcium channels will close. However, potassium influx will keep going on and it will result in repolarization. Till then, the sodium channels, they will go from activated state into inactivated state. So now sodium channels are in inactivated state, and in order to go back to resting state, potassium efflux should occur or repolarization should take place. Now, for sodium channels to go back into resting state, potassium efflux is required, which is only possible in phase 3 of the plateau potential. So, so if we take a look just from the beginning of phase 0 to the almost one third of phase 3, that's one third of repolarization, the sodium channels, they are in inactivated state. Almost all the sodium channels are in inactivated state. So it is not possible for the cell to generate an action potential no matter how strong stimulus we provide. So this duration, this phase is called as the absolute refractory period, and the reason is because almost all the sodium channels are in inactivated state. Now after one third of repolarization has taken place, now there is enough sodium efflux, so it causes the change in state of many sodium channels from inactivated state to resting state. Now many sodium channels are in the resting state and they can be stimulated, but not by a normal stimulus, but if we provide a stronger stimulus. So from one third of repolarization to till resting membrane potential is achieved, this duration is called as the relative refractory period. In this period, the cell can generate an action potential because some of the sodium channels are in the resting state, but this action potential can only, say, 50% of sodium channels are in resting state, but the stimulus should be stronger. If we provide a normal stimulus, because only half of sodium channels, 50% are resting state, action potential will not be generated. However, under the influence of a stronger stimulus, action potential can be generated by a cell. So this is called as relative refractory period, and the sum of both these refractory periods, that is absolute refractory period and relative refractory period, is called as the refractory period of the cell. So in refractory period, the cell cannot generate an action potential under the influence of a normal stimulus. And this whole refractory period is divided into absolute refractory period, in which the cell cannot generate an action potential no matter how stronger the stimulus is, and relative refractory period, in which action potential can be generated under influence of a stronger stimulus. Now, if this is the graph of if these are plateau potentials of ventricular muscle, and if we count them, and there's a suspected case of tachycardia, these are 200 beats per minute. So we want to give a treatment and decrease the rate from 200 to 100 beats per minute. Now we want to achieve a heart rate of 100 beats per minute by giving some treatment. So if we take a look, the main ion involved in depolarization is sodium, in plateau it's calcium, and in repolarization potassium ions are involved. So we can delay the process of depolarization by giving sodium channel blockers. So now the depolarization will be delayed, and so by giving a sodium blocker we have delayed the depolarization, so this will be plateau. And we can even delay the repolarization by giving potassium channel blockers. So now instead of 2 cycles we just have a single cycle, and if we count the heart rate, this time it will be 100 beats per minute. So in treatment of various types of arrhythmias, we use these drugs, that is sodium channel blockers, potassium channel blockers, and we can use beta blockers as well. So various drugs that we use in arrhythmias, these are sodium channel blockers, potassium channel blockers, calcium channel blockers, beta blockers, and some miscellaneous drugs. So all these drugs, they are used for treatment of different arrhythmias. These drugs are the antiarrhythmic drugs, and for them we have a separate classification, which is called as the Vogan-Villian classification of antiarrhythmic drugs. So as per this classification, these drugs, these various types of blockers, they are put under different classes given the numerical names. So we have 5 different classes: class 1 drugs, class 2 drugs, class 3 drugs, class 4, and class 5 drugs. So we can remember which blockers are included in which class by a simple method. So if we draw a cell, let us say this is the diagram of a cell. So intracellular ion is the potassium ion, and extracellularly there is high concentration of sodium ion. This is something that we know. Now on this cell, let us draw a beta 1 receptor. So this is a cell of the heart, and inside the cell is sarcoplasmic reticulum, which has high concentration of calcium ions. Now all we have to do is go from outside to inside. So this will be class 1 drug, this will be class 2, class 3, this will be class 4, and class 5 will be the miscellaneous drugs. So class 1 includes sodium channel blockers, class 2 beta blockers, class 3 potassium blockers, class 4 calcium channel blockers, and class 5 miscellaneous drugs. Now we'll study these drugs in detail in different sections.